Hey, thank you for tuning in to Instrumental Intel. I am your host, music producer, Chick with Beats, and I'm thrilled to be bringing this episode to you. Today, I have some industry news for you. Of course, instrumentals by me for your inspiration. And later, my special guest, the dazzling Danette Sheppard-Vaughn, will be joining me, and we're going to talk about her journey from Broadway to big tops and lessons in perseverance. And so, I'm really excited to be bringing this episode to you. And, of course, before I go ahead and kick it off with the first beat, I gotta send a shout out to my home station, Grander Radio out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And with that, let's go. Hey, this is music producer Chick with Beats, and you're listening to my podcast, Instrumental Intel. Okay, I'm back with the Music Biz Brief. First up, Bill Ackman's Pershing Square is selling a 2.7% stake in Universal Music Group, raising $1.4 billion by offloading 50 million shares at €26.60 each. He said UMG's been a top performer in his portfolio and will remain its largest holding even after the sale. Pershing Square previously requested a U.S. stock exchange listing for Universal, requiring a $500 million share sale as part of the process. UMG recently reported 7.6% year-over-year revenue growth in 2024, reaching $12.81 billion. Independent music company Empire is partnering with AI startup AudioShake to generate stems and timestamped lyrics across its catalog. The deal will support sync licensing, immersive formats, and new fan engagement opportunities, including remix tools and interactive social content. Empire joins major music firms like Universal, Warner, and Downtown Music in leveraging AudioShake's technology. Also, Bandcamp Pro users can now link their accounts with Blue Sky, making it easier to verify their identity across platforms. This integration helps artists ensure their music is recognized as theirs while streamlining cross-platform connections. And just in case you've heard some of the rumors and confusion, South by Southwest music is not ending, but it's changing next year. Instead of a separate second weekend, music showcases will now run concurrently with the film and interactive events over a 7-day period from March 12th through 18th. Organizers say this shift allows for a more curated experience, with showcases spread across 7 nights instead of 6. Music-only passes remain available at a lower cost than film and TV passes. Collab House has launched Campaigns, a tool that turns influencer marketing into a competition, inviting creators to make TikTok and Instagram videos with selected tracks. In beta testing, one track saw a 300% streaming spike with over 73,000 videos. While one creator wins €5,000, all entries can be used for promotion without further payment. Next, reports of a Spotify outage last week turned out to be a targeted crackdown on users of modified apps that bypass its premium subscription. While Spotify hasn't confirmed the move, searches for workarounds surged globally. New cracked versions have already appeared, but installing them carries security risks, including potential malware. And speaking of Spotify, the CEO Danette has sold $724 million worth of shares since mid-2023, with his latest sale on March 19th, bringing in $28.5 million. He has now offloaded stock 16 times since July of 2023, including $376 million in 2024 alone. Despite these sell-offs, he still holds 14.3% of Spotify shares, with 29.1% voting power, ensuring he and co-founder Martin Lawrenson retain control. Lawrenson has also been reducing his stake, selling over $556 million in shares last year, while maintaining a significant voting influence. Eck, who takes no salary, and does he need to at this point, has an estimated net worth of $7.95 billion. So yeah, definitely something independent artists, well, all artists actually should be aware of what's happening with Spotify and how much money it's actually bringing in executives and investors as opposed to the actual creators of the music. Go figure. Alright, and UK streaming revenues hit £1.02 billion in 2024, an increase of 5.7% from the previous year, driven by price hikes on streaming platforms. However, growth slowed compared to 2023, reflecting a maturing market. Paid subscriptions generated £875.5 million, while ad-supported revenue saw the strongest growth, rising 8.9% to £77.9 million. Meanwhile, vinyl sales continued their ascent, with revenue up 2.9% to £145.7 million, now largely driven by new releases rather than catalog titles. Despite a decade of industry growth, inflation-adjusted figures suggest the UK music market remains smaller than its pre-streaming peak. Next in news, a federal judge rejected Live Nation's attempt to limit the Justice Department's antitrust case, which aims to break up Ticketmaster. The ruling keeps key claims intact, including allegations that Live Nation forces artists to use its promotion services to access its venues. The lawsuit, backed by 30 states, argues that Live Nation has illegally monopolized the live events industry, controlling ticketing at 80% of major venues. The trial is set for March 2026. Alright, Believe reported a 12.3% revenue increase in 2024, reaching about $1.07 billion. The company highlighted strong growth in Europe and the Americas, along with hitting 800 billion global streams. However, it noted that the impact of digital service provider price hikes from 2023 faded in the second half of 2024, and ad-supported streaming remains weak in emerging markets. Believe expects over 13% revenue growth this year, so we'll see if they hit their targets. Next, the RIAA reports that U.S. recorded music revenue grew just 3.3% in 2024, reaching $17.67 billion. Streaming remains dominant, but ad-supported revenue declined, dragging overall growth. Paid subscriptions hit 100 million for the first time, yet growth slowed significantly. Wholesale revenue, which reflects what artists, labels, and distributors earned, rose only 2.7%, which was lower than inflation. Meanwhile, vinyl sales continued their steady rise, up 7% to $1.4 billion, marking 18 consecutive years of growth. And finally, Bria, a visual generative AI platform focused on licensed content, has raised $40 million in Series B funding, bringing its total to $65 million. The company plans to expand its patented attribution engine beyond images to music, video, and text, ensuring data owners are compensated for AI-generated outputs. With over 30 data partners, including Getty Images and Envato, Bria aims to create a compliant AI ecosystem for businesses. The funding follows strategic alliances with NVIDIA, Microsoft, and AWS, as Bria pushes for more ethical AI-driven content generation. Alright, and that's a wrap for the Music Biz Brief. I'm going to take a quick pause for the cause, and then I'll be back with my special guest, dazzling Danette Sheppard-Vaughn, right after this. Keep it locked. I'm a Chick with Beats, multi-genre music producer and strategist to indie artists and labels. Visit achickwithbeats.com for resources for artists and instrumentals in various genres available for songs, vlogs, blogs, podcasts, themes, TV, film, commercials, and more. Once again, that's achickwithbeats.com. That's ACHICKWITBEATZ.com. Let's make something happen. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to Instrumental Intel. I am your host, music producer at Chick with Beats, and I'm so excited, thrilled, and delighted to say that I have the multi-hyphenate entertainer, performer, vocalist. I mean, I'm sure I'm leaving some stuff off, actress, thespian, yeah, all that good stuff. Most people would probably see you online as Dazzling Danette, but Danette Sheppard-Vaughn, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to chat with me and the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a thrill and an honor always to stand before God's people, to, support a fellow woman in business and in entertainment. And I'm just thrilled to be able to share with you today.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you here. So if you could, just kind of give the listeners a feel for who you are and how you got involved in entertainment from the very beginning.
Well, I am a ringmaster, believe it or not, one of only 8 female ringmasters in world history.
Wow.
Like many other occupations, unfortunately, it is a very male-dominated field.
Yeah.
So I am so grateful to God, so blessed to have been able to be a circus ringmaster for the past 2 years, 2023 and 2024. I was the ringmaster of Omnium Circus, a wonderful, wonderful circus that I was so proud to be a part of because it is the only circus that is totally inclusive. It is ASL if a person is deaf. If children or adults are on the spectrum, it is totally focused on their needs. We have disabled performers in the show. So it truly is the only circus where everyone can attend. If you had a child who was deaf, they could enjoy it. A child who is blind. So the entire show is also audio descriptive. And it was just a really fantastic and awesome experience to be a part of and touch so many lives, uplift so many adults and children, those in wheelchairs and things, to show that truly, truly anything is possible if you have a dream and a desire to work hard, to not let excuses of any kind stop you, then truly the sky is the limit. And it was really a great, great, great thing. And what's funny is I was also made history as the first featured female vocalist in the history of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus over 20 years ago. And the fabulous Barbara Flughaupt, she's an incredible publicist. She worked with me over 20 years ago when I was with Ringling Brothers, and she was responsible for a full page article that I had in the New York Times, and along with a lot of PR. And she remembered me from over 20 years ago. She remembered my talent, my personality. And in November of 2022, actually a month after my husband of 17 years passed away, I get a messenger message saying, "How would you like to be a ringmaster?" Out of nowhere, so I was like, what? And so the rest is history. Of course, I accepted the job, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, and something that will be a part of my life forever, and a story that I'm just so happy to tell. So I also mentor high school and middle school, students in musical theater as well as life. That's why I'm called a mentor and not a teacher or something like that, because I mentor them in the way it is in the world, in addition to the musical theater portion. And as I tell them, it's great to be talented and to be skilled, but it's also very important to be nice. And I tell them the story about how I became a ringmaster 20 years later, a publicist remembering my character, remembering my talent, and reaching out to me, offering me a job with no audition, sight unseen. And so, the impression that you make on people, it really does matter. And so that was a lesson that I showed them, that I explained to them. And I'm always happy to tell that story.
Wow, that is really incredible. Yeah, so we've been connected on social media for a long time now, I believe.
Yes, I love that. That's one thing I love about social, finding fabulous people like yourself and being able to meet up and connect and share information and see what each other is doing. I've met quite a few people the same way like you. We became following each other and then started corresponding. And, I've met some beautiful, beautiful people that way. And again, as I said, thank you so much for reaching out to me, for having me here. It really is an honor and a blessing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been wanting to for a while, just from seeing your posts and, some of the different things that you've been involved with. I've been fascinated with all the things that you share. So I like the fact that, this is kind of filling in some of the details that I may have missed,
right.
The algorithm changes and all that stuff.
I know. I'm telling you, Lord, child, we trying to fight. We trying to keep up with these algorithms.
Yes.
Lord.
Yes.
It is a struggle every day.
It really is. I mean, and every time you get used to it, something shifts. And
exactly.
Then,
yes.
So you can't be a stranger to trial and error when it comes to that.
And kind of like it mirrors life because that's just how life is. Every time you turn around, here's something else shifts. You adjust to that, and then something, here it comes. And so as I tell my mentees, it's important to have a good support network. We cannot get through this life alone. It's important to have a good support network. To reach out for help when you need it. Closed mouths don't get fed. That's an old saying from a long time ago, but it couldn't be more true. A lot of people in today's times are, worried about privacy and not saying this and not telling that. But, you can't get your needs met if people don't know what those needs are. And there's no shame in needing help. There's no shame in reaching out for help. There's no shame in saying, hey, I'm not okay right now, and allowing your support network to shore you up, to hold you up, to prop you up until you get back to a point when you're able to stand on your own 2 feet. So that's just so important. And I try to share that message with my mentees and anyone else who listen whenever I can.
Ooh, that is some serious gems right there that you just dropped. I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of the sound bites that people will hear going around.
Amen.
Yeah. With all the different things that you do, and, you've got so many gifts, so many talents. What was the first one that you decided to pursue? Or when did you recognize, what, this needs to be a part of my life?
Well, I knew that I could sing from childhood. I actually, at 15 years old, I was in a high school talent show, and I sang "And I'm Telling You" by Jennifer Holliday. Dreamgirls had just come out not too long on Broadway after that, and it was the hottest sensation all over the radio. And I sang that song in a talent show, and I got my first standing ovation. People were banging chairs, and it was, I was 15 at that time, and as a result of that, then I got offered to come to Canada, to the town of Owen Sound, and I sang for the mayor and this big, huge congregation of people, thousands of people, for some event. I can't even remember what it was now because it was so many years ago. But as a result of that, that was like my first foray into, okay, I really have something here. But unfortunately, that was way before the days of American Idol and, and Star Search and all the other platforms that have developed through the years where people can let their talents be seen and be heard. So, and I didn't, unfortunately, have anyone in my life to help me navigate, what what should I do if I want to perform, or push me in that direction. So early on, unfortunately, it wasn't even something that I considered in terms of a career or anything like that. But at the age of 30 years old, I was working in office management. I have a lot of administrative and managerial skills as well. And I was working in office management, and I just decided after my 30th birthday that I did not want to get old and sing the shoulda, coulda, woulda song.
Mhm.
And so I said, you know what? I'm going to step out on faith. I quit my full-time job working as office manager in the Department of Public Safety at Bronx Community College, and decided to start temping. So I registered at a temp agency, because, you still have to survive and pay bills. And I got headshots, which my boyfriend that I was with at the time paid for, and because he believed in my talent. And then I just started auditioning, and I got one job after the next, and within a couple of years after auditioning, starting my professional career to be a performer, I got the job with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, which of course was the pinnacle of my career at that time. It allowed me to perform for 18,000 people at Madison Square Garden, and many of the arenas all over the country. And it was a fabulous and wonderful thing. So I used that as a lesson, not only to myself and to others, that, it's never too late, that you should follow your dreams, that you never want to get to a point where you have so many regrets. I should have done this. I wish I'd have done that. It's better to, step out on faith, go balls to the wall. If you crash and burn, it's a lesson learned, and you just keep it moving from there. So I shifted, as I said, 30 years of age from what I was doing, even though I was great at it, and decided, you know what, I'm going to follow my God-given talent, the passions of my heart. I'm going to step out in faith and do this thing. And, I haven't looked back since.
Wow, that was incredible. Just inspirational to hear. Because a lot of times that type of stuff does kind of hold us back, but exactly. You recognize, no, I don't want to live with regret. I got to try it.
Exactly.
So that's a phenomenal thing to hear. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. You had mentioned being the first female ringleader for Ringling Brothers. At that time, had you had a publicist prior to that, or did that come while you were? Okay.
No, that all was as a result of being a part of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, because, it's been in existence, over 150 years. It is, world renowned. And so they have a huge budget and a huge, it was really like the Broadway of circuses, especially, at that time back in 2004, which is when I was with Ringling Brothers. And to clarify, I wasn't the first female ringmaster. I was the first featured female vocalist.
Okay.
Because up until then they had only had, of course, the ringmaster was a man all those years, and there had never been any other voice in the circus besides the ringmaster up until that point. But I was the first. They decided to incorporate a featured female singer, a spokesperson, et cetera. And as a result of that, led to here we are years later and still connected with the circus in a major way. And it's such a blessing too, because I've spent time around some incredible people with some incredible talents that a lot of us don't have and will never have, juggling and all kind of stilt walking and all kinds of incredible contortion and just things that just you have your mouth and your eyes wide open. So it's just, I've just been blessed to be around and to learn from and to absorb the essence of some incredibly fantastic individuals. And, I don't take those kind of blessings for granted.
Yeah. Okay, so you said that, you had the audience in an uproar when you were 15. So from then to where you performed at Ringling Brothers for the first time, did you have any nerves, or had you been doing it so long that it was just kind of second nature to you?
Well, no, because at 15, was when I knew I could sing. But there were many years, through their decades, in fact, where I didn't really do anything with singing, especially not on a professional level. I might have sang for a party or something here or there, but there was a good maybe 20 years or 15 years between that 15-year-old girl and when I was doing anything regular in terms of singing and performing. And then, as I said, at 30 years old, which was June of 2000 to be exact, when I made that decision to quit my full-time job with benefits and everything and step out on faith and start temping and get headshots and audition. That was in June of 2000. And then I auditioned for Ringling Brothers in the fall of 2003. So in less than 3 years, I went from, never having auditioned and performed professionally, meaning getting paid to do it. In less than 3 years, I landed that history-making role at Ringling Brothers. But in between that 3 years, as I said, I had gotten, show after show after show, which included I did a tour of Smokey Joe's Cafe with Gladys Knight. I did a international tour in Germany, a European tour of Jesus Christ Superstar with the renowned choreographer, director Bjork Lee, who played Connie in the original Broadway cast of A Chorus Line. She was our director. So I landed one show, one job after another. I tell my mentees all the time that I was so really blessed when I decided to pursue show business as a career. That I didn't really have to take on survival jobs in between, like many performers and actors have to do, wait tables and other kinds of things traditionally to be able to survive in between from one gig to the next. Right. And God bless me. That's what told me that was what I was supposed to do, because I did not, when I decided in June of 2000 to start pursuing this, I was able to stack one job after another in that 3 years up to Ringling Brothers, where I only had maybe a few weeks, in between one job after the next. So God really spoke to me and showed me that this was what I was supposed to do. And then in 2002, I was doing Nonsense and another musical called The Last Session at the Downstairs Cabaret Theater in Rochester, New York. And my mom and dad drove up from New York. It's like 6 hours. And we went to Niagara Falls on my day off and all of that. But they came up to see me in the shows. In Nonsense, I played Sister Hubert in Nonsense. And then this musical called The Last Session. Pardon me. I played Trisha. And they came and saw me in those two productions. And then they told me that as it didn't matter how long it took, that, they would support me, that they believed in my talent, that they knew I was destined for greatness, and that, I had their complete and total support. And that meant financial, that meant anything. And so, I can never, I'm so grateful to God for the kind of support that I had. My late father, who passed away, unfortunately, about a year ago, November 7th of 2023. Him and my mom, who's still here with me, praise God, they really, really supported this decision to pursue show business, which not a lot of, families do, because as I said, it is a dubious position. It's not steady in a lot of cases. It requires a great deal of faith and confidence in yourself, which sadly some people do not have. And so, I really am blessed to have had that kind of support and then confirmation from God that this is what I'm supposed to do, because, the things lined up the way that they have. And then to now have the opportunity to pour into young people the things that they need to be their best selves in this life, not only as performers or entertainers, if that's what the direction they choose to go in, but just in life in general. Because as I told them, they met me, but they meet someone who this past decade has been really, really challenging for me. As I mentioned, my husband of 17 years passed away October 20th of 2022. And then a year later, November 7th, my dad died of 2023. Coupled with, many, many challenges throughout this decade, with him in and out of the hospital, and well as my daughter, who's had some mental health things going on, her in and out of the hospital. So it's been really challenging. However, as I told my mentees, you would never know all the things that have gone on because I don't let that color my light, my inspiration, my sense of hope. And I give all glory, honor, and praise to God, who is totally, completely responsible for everything I am and all that is wonderful about me. To God be the glory, and he gets all the credit for it. And I love telling my story and all that I have been through to let people know you can make it, you can get through anything. And if all of us, if we really sit back and think about, at some point in time in our life, there was something going on where we didn't know how we were going to make it through. I don't know how. It was the worst thing in the world. There's no coming back from it. And now here we are able to look back at that, which shows us that if it could be done, if you could make it at that point, you can make it at this point. And again, I go back to leaning on support, making sure you have a good support network. That's one of the most important lessons I try to give my mentees. You need a support network because sometimes we're weakened. Sometimes we're not seeing things clearly. Sometimes we are not our best selves. And so sometimes we need that support network to fill in those gaps, to straighten out those spaces that may be crooked in those moments and help us in the times when we need help, because every human being at some point in time will need a little help. And there's nothing wrong with that. The smart people embrace that fact and reach out when they need to.
Again, more wise words. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience.
Thank you.
Yes. So, okay. God gave you so much confirmation that you never even had time to have nerves. But
I get nerves because I tell my mentees all the time, but you can't let those nerves overpower you. I use those nerves to go even harder and fuel my performance, because I'm one of the most nervous I have ever been, I must say. And I just told them this story last week when I saw them. Last year when the circus, Omnium Circus, was on Broadway at the New Victory Theater, and Whoopi Goldberg came to our performance. We opened April 12th of last year at the New Victory Theater Friday night, which was opening night. My mom was there, and she came the next day to the matinee at 2:00, Saturday, April 13th. You see, I don't remember the date because, she's one of my icons. I've loved her for many years.
Yeah.
I revel in her talent. I through the years have heard from many people that I remind them of her. And so I was so nervous that she was out there in the audience getting ready to see me be the ringmaster of Omnium Circus. But I was prepared, which is the key to, not letting nerves overpower you. As I tell my mentees, confidence is key. Confidence is key. And the key to that confidence is being prepared for whatever it is you're about to do. Put that practice in, put that rehearsal in, know your stuff front and back, in and out, up and down, so that now when you get out there on that stage, and whether it's a stage to perform or the stage, whatever stage you're on, your stage at the hospital, your stage in the bus that you drive, your stage behind the counter as a cashier at the supermarket, whatever your stage is, if you are confident in whatever it is that you're doing and you have rehearsed it, studied it, practiced it, then then you can overpower those nerves, and more than likely, you'll be successful on that stage, whatever it may be.
Mm. Wow, thank you for that. A lot of times, and I've shared this with other people on the show, like anytime that I've had to perform, I've always been kind of nervous. But, with those tips that you just gave, about rehearsing and preparing, like those are definitely some gems that sometimes when you kind of rattled and don't necessarily have somebody to kind of talk you through that, it's a good thing to recall. Or so
Yeah.
I'm very glad that you shared that for any listeners who might be feeling the same kind of way. Like, oh no,
Yeah.
I got this show coming up. What do I need to do? But
Over prepare. That's all I can say. Over prepare, over rehearse, because the more rehearsed you are, more prepared, then you don't really have to give a lot of thought to it. At that point, you can just go out there and do you, whatever that is. Perform on the stage, drive your bus safely and efficiently, ring people up with a smile, efficiently getting people through your line, healing folks in the hospital or taking care of them and getting nursing care, whatever it is that your stage, if you are prepared and you are confident in it, then you can overcome, whatever like trepidation or nerves you may be feeling. Because we're going to feel stuff, we're human. But the key is what we do with it. We're going to feel. We always going to feel. And I tell people, you're entitled to feel, but now what's next? That's the most important thing. And that goes across the board in life in general. When someone dies, when someone's sick, when we in all kind of turmoil, feel what you're going to feel because you're human. But then, for me as a person of faith, I walk it like I talk it. If I say I have faith in God and I believe in his word and whatnot, then I'm going to feel whatever it is as a human being when things happen. But then I got to pull myself together, walk it like I talk it, and lean on and trust in the God that I say that I serve and believe in. That is the true test right then when stuff is hitting the fan. It's easy to, to talk a lot of stuff and say a lot of stuff when all is well. But the true test is when the flames and the fire is all around you.
Man, that's a word right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so okay, I'm very, very sad to say that we're kind of coming up on the tail end of this, but since I still feel like we just scratching the surface, so I'm hoping that if you're open to it, this is just part one, and
Sure.
I can have you on again soon so we can
Absolutely.
continue.
I love it. And I'm so honored and I'm just so appreciative, so grateful to, be in your presence in this way, to, have your attention of your listeners, your viewers, your platform. Again, as I said, I really do support everything that you're doing. And, I will keep you in prayer that things, move successfully, swiftly, and in the direction that God and you would have them to go.
Ooh, thank you. I received that. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, before we go ahead and close out, I want to make sure that everyone knows where they can find and follow you, check out anything that you've got going on. And then also if you have like even shout outs or, words that you kind of want to leave the audience with, you can do that after as well.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, well, I am on most platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook as Dazzling Danette, Danette. I would love for you to follow me. I also have a website, dazzlingdanette.net, which you can go to, but I will announce anything that I'm doing on my social media, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn for the business people because, as I said, you do have a lot of business, operations, and managerial experience. And if I'm not doing enough, I am completing my certification as a professional life coach. And so I will be a professional certified life coach by the end of next month. I'm online doing assignments and reading and writing papers and doing all that right now. But as a mentor, and I've been for many years, giving advice and encouraging and uplifting. And so I got an email from my alma mater. I have a bachelor's degree in music from New Jersey City University, which I went back and got in 2017. It took 5 years. That was in the midst of my husband's and daughter's hospitalizations and illness.
Oh,
And I still was able to graduate cum laude
wow.
with that bachelor's degree. So that's how I tell people you can do anything because
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. As I said, I didn't need that degree in music to perform. God blessed me, with God given talent, and I was able to get jobs and stuff. But it was a blessing to go back to school since it was right up the street from my house, which prompted that in the midst of, all of the was going on with my husband's and daughter's illness. And God gave me what I needed to make it through. So that I just leave people with, you can do anything. You can do anything. You just have to find your strength within you. If you don't have it, then reach out to, your support network so that they can, lend you some until you are able to recoup yours. And again, I look forward to people following Dazzling Danette on social media. Look forward to connecting with people. I love people. And, God bless us. That's what I really want to say. God bless us.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I truly appreciate everything that you've shared. So many nuggets for us to kind of chew on and apply in our daily lives. So yeah, again, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. And I'm already excited about round 2. So, I'll probably be hitting you up within a couple months, just so you know. Heads up.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a really blessed rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, and that is a wrap for this episode of Instrumental Intel. I've been your host, music producer Chick with Beats, and once again, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I'd like to thank my special guest, Danette E. Sheppard-Vaughn, for coming through and dropping those gems and sharing her wisdom and experience with us. And of course, I'd like to thank my home station, Grander Radio, out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Make sure you come back next week. I got more goodies in store with part 2 of resources for women in music to close out Women's History Month. All right, so till next time, you know where to find me. Tune in, tell a friend. I'll see you then. Peace.